Let's talk about 3 takeaways from the midterm election.
The first one would be, it seems like a win for small d democracy. The second one would be that rules really matter. Yeah. And finally, a lot changed, but the status quo pretty much prevailed.
I'm Dina Levy. I'm in the Department of Political Science and International Studies. I'm here with my colleague,
Susan Orr.
And let's go. Takeaway 1, win for democracy.
Yes, so I think we both shared the feeling that a nice concession from Mehmet Oz in a contested race, though perhaps in a few years back we wouldn't have thought that was remarkable, but in today's environment we think that's a big win for democracy, among others.
Yes, absolutely, and I think you're right that back in the day, even, I don't know, pre-2016 or 2020 certainly, that being able to say you won was nothing unusual, something that we took for granted in our country. I think that the 2020 election started to really question the integrity of our electoral system.
Yes, which brings us to our second point rather nicely. We, on election night, didn't know all of the results. One of the reasons for that was because the way votes are cast and the way they're counted varies tremendously across the nation. So I think to the detriment of our democracy because of the fact that there's strategy building now all the time about how you cast ballots. Will the early ballots go to Democrats and then the later ballots to Republicans or vice versa? And so that's becoming a topic of conversation. Mm-hmm. And some states are not even counting the mail-in ballots till the polls close, which then creates an opportunity for those who want to sow mischief to shed doubt on what's happening. The early ballots looked in favor of the Republicans, and now all of a sudden things are swaying towards the Democrats. There must be something fishy happening.
Right.
So one of the things that I've written about that is not always accepted by everybody is to say that it would really be nice to have a voting system where everybody votes in person on election day. So that means that you would be casting your ballot on a piece of paper in public sphere where we can make sure that you're not being bribed and you're not being coerced and that people can not see how you're voting. So you have privacy at the point of voting, but we can have a kind of common faith in the integrity of how votes were cast, and then we could have observers in counting the ballots, and there's uniformity across the nation. But that would require considerable change in our election infrastructure.
But it is sort of ironic that it's 2022 and that the best, safest ballot is still the paper ballot, as opposed to, something, an app on your phone or sitting at your computer and being able to vote. And yet those would be the ways that we would really start having people question more and more whether the election was fair. And that's really something, you're the expert, but feels like 2020 is that really brought that question about election fraud to the forefront to many people's minds, trying to figure out who won the election in 2020, and it took days to find out. And even with these midterm elections, 2 years later, we're still having a situation where it's going to take a couple days. I think that's stressful for people. I think it's problematic also about the longer you have to wait, the more questions I think that can emerge about, well, has this been done right? Has this been done fairly?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think a lot of the controversy around the way we cast votes emerged in 2020, a unique election. And few people knew prior to that some states have only mail ballots. Mm-hmm. So in New York, we're not familiar with that.
Right.
But some states you can't cast a vote in person. You go and you can only mail in your ballot and drop it in a ballot box. We originally got to the place where we had paper ballots and privacy booths because parties were manipulating the system by giving out ballots that were color-coded so that you would vote the party ticket. And we went to secret ballot in person so to save the integrity of the ballot. And I think that has eroded over time in the name of convenience. So we now live in a world where lots of things are really convenient, and understandably we want voting to be really convenient too, which leads to a kind of push towards mail-in ballots, or even a lot of young people would like to vote on a computer, just the way that they bank or do other things that are important. And the problem with those things is they may be convenient, but they may not be secure in ways that we want ballots to be secure.
Right.
And increasingly, because in 2020, the way the election played out, it became kind of a partisan thing that Democrats would vote by mail and Republicans would vote in person. That has added to the kind of strategy about how the way you cast your vote, not who you cast it for, but the way you cast your vote being politicized. And I think that that's a problem, because then you get, questions about, is this a free and fair election that are problematic?
Yeah. And that kind of going back to the democracy component of it, I think that we saw larger than average turnout for a midterm. Midterm elections typically are ones that people sit out. They don't get all excited and, galvanized to go out and vote. And I think that this election, like the last couple, have been different. And certainly, after Obama's shellacking, as he called it, when he lost 63 seats in the House in 2010, that's not unusual. And so the fact that that did not happen is really unusual, and having a large turnout is unusual. Right. And that's good, and I think that makes us feel good about ourselves having a large turnout, but I think a large turnout is also a sign that people are unsettled, people are a little bit worried, or that there are issues that they really care about that they need to get out and vote for. So abortion was certainly one of those issues, I think.
Yeah, granted. Yeah. I think that's where you see the intersection of the issues and the rules. So if you want to say, does voting by mail increase the electorate? Most of the studies we have would say, no, it doesn't. It doesn't bring new people into the electorate, but it makes it more convenient for those who would have voted anyway to vote. And it may matter more than in a midterm election, which is usually a lot lower turnout. But how do you tease that apart from, well, can we attribute higher turnout to an increase in the convenience of voting in this election? It's much more likely that it's due to the highly salient issues that people are passionate about. And if we take those away, it goes back to more of a norm. But one of the things I find interesting about this election, and why we still can't call all the seats beyond how we cast votes, is how we count the votes too. So one of the things that I found really interesting is the race in Alaska, where they've changed the voting system, how they count the votes, essentially from a single member district to a ranked choice voting system. And for those who don't know, in most of our elections, we have a district, we have a single winner, and the person who gets the most votes wins that seat. In a ranked choice system, everybody goes and casts one vote, but on that ballot, they rank the candidates, their first choice, their second choice, their third choice, their fourth choice, however many candidates there are. And then when they count those ballots, whoever is the winner, if they don't have a majority support, then the person who got the lowest number of votes, their ballots are taken out, and whoever cast those ballots, their second choice, it comes into play. So the ballots are redistributed to the second choice candidate, and so on until you get a majority winner. And why I think that is exciting and important is because that allows for the emergence of third-party candidates without the sort of mantra that, well, you can't cast your vote for a third party because you'll be a spoiler.
Yeah, wasting your vote. That, yes, right, exactly.
Yeah. So Alaska is an interesting one to watch. Which brings us to our third point, really, that good things have happened, a lot of things have changed, but kind of the status quo has prevailed. And we were a tightly divided nation prior to the midterm. We're a tightly divided nation post the midterm. All of the kind of norms of the economy was running against the Democrats. The fact that it was a midterm was running against the Democrats. Haven't really played out in the way we would traditionally anticipate.
No, definitely not. But I think it's somewhat interesting that I mean, the Democrats, I think, started thinking that the abortion issue would kind of fade away. It wouldn't galvanize voters, but it seems like it did. But that's, again, more money, more effort to end up not that different from where we started before the midterm elections.
Right, because
the
point. States are still deciding that
Yep.
issue given the Supreme Court decision.
Yep, exactly.
If you found any of this interesting, please come and check us out at the Department of Political Science and International Studies at SUNY Brockport.